and it's been going sideways for months, down, up, and then it creates this kind of triangle, and for traders, it's a technical trading pattern called an ascending triangle, and the probability of that breaking upward is quite high. I can't recall exactly what that is, but it is high. It's like above 66%. And so it's kind of, and it's a big one, right? It's going for months. I said anytime in the next 2 weeks, this thing can break. And I actually meant it any time within hours to 2 weeks. Because 2 weeks is where the apex of that triangle hits, and you know that something's going to happen.
So another all-time high. You were waiting for us to break out 61k. Did this come ahead of time for you? Because, and do you think it was a Coinbase thing? It was a by the rumor pump?
No, well, I put out in my letter that we'd test all-time highs over the 2 to 3 week phase, and right in the middle of that, like 2.5 weeks later, did test it, and it hovered underneath. It's really interesting in that, when you get this kind of setup where it's been, it's consolidating, essentially hitting the sort of 60-ish zone, and it's been going sideways for months, down, up, and then it creates this kind of triangle, and for traders, it's a technical trading pattern called an ascending triangle, and the probability of that breaking upward is quite high. I can't recall exactly what that is, but it is high. It's like above 66%. And so it's kind of, and it's a big one, right? It's going for months. So it's a really brain dead trade, because once it breaks above it, you've got a very high probability of it running. And so every time we got close to it, everyone went long on the derivative trading market. They went degenerate long. And so, of course, when that happens, it's very incentivized for people to take the other side of the trade. And so it really, right now, we broke it, but everyone's still very, very largely in long positions. So it's creating a lot of headwinds for us to move upwards. And so it hit the top. It's been testing. I said anytime in the next 2 weeks, this thing can break, and I actually meant it any time within hours to 2 weeks, because 2 weeks is where the apex of that triangle hits, and you know that something's going to happen. Typically what happens in these trading patterns is they hit these support and resistance lines, and our resistance was flat at whatever it was, 62,000. And then we had this support line that's trending upwards. So as time goes by, it's going higher and higher and higher. If it breaks below that, then you kind of break into a new pattern. And but it wasn't. It was holding very easily, that price line. And at the point where the two lines converge, something's going to happen. Very seldom does it run out sideways. So that was the next 2 weeks, and it broke. We had that kind of degenerate long position stuff happening, and it created headwinds. A lot of traders like to counter trade it. If everybody's in long positions, obviously you can't stay in a long position for free. Just like, if you're buying a house on a mortgage, you're doing a long position on your house, essentially. You're just borrowing money from the bank to buy stuff you haven't already got. You're not actually paying for with real money, you're borrowing it. So it costs funding rates. And when those funding rates go really high, Mr. Professional Trader comes in and goes, oh, I can make, what was it? Close to 300% per annum by going short and holding the Bitcoins. So a lot of people start to balance that off by going short. And then people also protect that line, because what you can do is force the price downwards. And if you can force it down past a certain line in the sand, you can cause a liquidation. And it's just a trading strategy where you can counter trade everyone and take them home to the wreckers, essentially. So that's what we're currently doing.
I've got a couple of questions on that.
Yeah.
Does
sure.
the triangle does it ascend because essentially as time moves on, you've got less and less sellers at the lower prices? Are you essentially wiping out the different longs, the different stop losses at different points?
I think for you to think of it in a price discovery, the market's a price discovery mechanism. Mm-hmm. And you've got long-term buyers coming in. Whenever it dips, someone buys the dip and says, I'll take that price, thank you very much. So it's rejecting any lower price because people do want to buy it. And so if you get this history of it, I'll buy that, and then I'll buy that, and next higher price, you get this kind of pattern forming where this thing is discovering its natural price higher and higher. And certainly with Bitcoin being quite special, it's a market that's not at saturation. Publicly traded markets, commodities, gold, anything you can think of in the traditional world is at saturation. It's done its full penetration of its market base, people trading it, whereas Bitcoin, of course, is in this hyperbolic curve upwards as people adopt it. And so we're currently something like 50,000 more people that you can see on the blockchain per day coming in to buy it for the first time. So that means probably around 150,000 people all told, including the exchanges. They'll probably be seeing 150,000 people per day right now coming in. So obviously you've got these hordes of people coming in to buy it, and every dip you get, they're buying it. So you get these you'll see this sort of upward moving. Every dip is brought up higher, and that would be explaining this particular triangle within Bitcoin.
So is that why sometimes then the price suddenly flies up as well? Because it then just eats through the orders above it?
Yeah, because someone pulled the wall and everyone just FOMOs in and goes, it's gone. That means they gave up. Let's enter our long positions, and everyone starts buying. So it's kind of a bit of a crazy game. I always say it's like the game of gridiron, where you're going for yards, and there's all sorts of tactics to push it one way or the other. So you can bet on which way the yards go.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So where are we in terms of price floor now? What's your kind of call for the rest of this month? What do you think is going on?
I tweeted something out a little bit back a few days ago, and I reckon where we're at right now is sort of a halfway intermission. Actually, the name of my last letter was called Intermission, because we're at the halfway point, and that's based on a lot
minor
of
revenues,
miners revenue. So. Every time miners sort of exceed their prior all-time high, the last one was 2017, obviously at the top of the market. Since then, we've had a halvening, so they're mining half the number of coins per 10-minute block. So they've got to make that up with higher prices, and we just kind of passed through that zone at the weeks, a few weeks ago, where we went into this consolidation ban. If you look at whenever they go through this zone, price goes through like a consolidation. And if you remember the double pump of 2013 on the charts, that was a
what was that?
That was that big sort of run up, and then it corrected, I think 93%. But if you were tracking the minute chart, but people thought that was a bear market, but that was actually the consolidation of 2013 because it was such a volatile asset. And we saw the same thing in 2017. We hit that first major dip. Just looking at that what is it? It was around the 2,000, 2,500 zone. We went through this big consolidation. That marked the sort of the halfway point before we ran up again. So I think we're there. We're just sort of pausing. And we're just making that breakout. So, it's interesting in this. I don't know exactly what's going to happen how the price chart will shape till the end of this year, because things have accelerated so quickly. And if we have the same sort of quarter that we had in the first quarter, it seems too fast, and that would normally spell the bear market